Good afternoon. I'm going to stand right here. Thanks to everyone for having me. My talk is going to be just a little bit different. Our area of emphasis is slightly different than our other two speakers, although theirs is equally as important. My name is Alison Davis. I'm a professor of agricultural economics, and I direct a center called SEDEC, which is the Community and Economic Development Initiative of Kentucky. Before I go into what we are, I wanted to give a little bit of a background about why we came to be. So within the Provost's office, that's where economic development typically lands. And so we have research parks, we have a lot of support for commercialization, we have a lot of coordination with our cities, particularly Lexington, which is where UK is located, but certainly also Louisville, which is the biggest city within Kentucky. We provide entrepreneurial support to UK students. There's some really great contests that go on, but this particular area focuses primarily on relationships with urban industry, with urban government, with urban entrepreneurs. And so we rely on Cooperative Extension. That is a result, we talked a little bit about the Morrill Act. It's a result of having a Cooperative Extension office in all counties in Kentucky. Some states don't have them in each county, but they're certainly available regionally. 10 of the 14 SEC universities are in fact land-grant universities. And so what that means is that there is an outreach program that hits every single component of the state. And so mostly every single county will have at least one agent that's dedicated to agriculture and natural resources, to family consumer sciences, and for some who are from urban areas and think of Cooperative Extension, they're most often thinking about the 4-H program, the Green Clover. Some states also have a community and economic development program. And so in the South, we actually don't believe at last count, there are no counties that have faculty dedicated to economic and community development, but we have state support. So one thing, maybe about 8 years ago, when I first moved to the University of Kentucky, an article was released by the Center for Business and Economic Research. And what it stated, it looked at Kentucky and its neighbors, mostly North Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, West Virginia, and Mississippi, and was trying to come up with an explanation for why Kentucky was lagging behind the rest of the South in terms of economic growth. And when we looked at strictly the urban areas, Kentucky was growing faster than any of our counterparts. And so what that leaves is the fact that the rural areas in Kentucky are simply not living up to the rest of the region. And so our particular program sort of focuses more on the rural areas. So each of our community economic development programs across the South and the North Central region, where Missouri is part of that, in terms of how we separate according to USDA, have really, really strong community economic development programs. In the South, some are very strong and some don't have resources dedicated to them. But we're all different in how we provide programming, research, and expertise. So some states, I said before, have county-level staff that are dedicated to this, but not many in the South. I think Missouri has some, but the rest in the North Central region, almost every county in Wisconsin has an individual dedicated to community economic development who wears a University of Wisconsin name tag. The purpose of this program is to bring the research of the university out to the communities in the state. And the outcomes, we hope, are to improve both social and economic conditions. So in 2010, I was an extension specialist within the Department of Ag Econ. And so I was living all by myself, and I was going out to as many communities as I could, trying to provide support. And it was just somewhat scattered. And so I went to our dean, and I said, this program is simply not working. We're not cohesive, we don't have support, and we're just not getting the traction that we hope we would get. And so he provided some resources, and this was during a very tumultuous time with the budget. And so he actually dedicated more resources to our program because he felt that this was a really important concept. And so SEDEC was born. And it's an integrated research and outreach center that's designed to meet the needs of rural communities primarily. We certainly don't ignore our urban areas, but we are here pretty much to make sure our rural communities have some capacity to get out of the cellar. We work with nonprofit organizations, we work with elected officials, we work with economic development professionals, and in many instances, we just work with grassroots communities. So in Kentucky, I think we're very similar to many of our neighbors. We have a total of 120 counties. 89 of those are considered rural. I think if I actually had to go around and do a 0-1, if you're rural, that number would actually be much higher in Kentucky. We provide, like I said, support mostly to those rural communities, but we work within the cities with their planning districts and with their economic development professionals and their elected officials. Let's see. So here are our 5 areas of emphasis, and economic development is just one of them. However, I think I would be, I get a lot of support from this group if I said that the other 4 pieces down here certainly promote economic development. And so our first piece is going to be economic development. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more. But we have staff that are specifically dedicated to rural health access and community health. And so we have someone who goes out into these communities, builds health coalitions, so that we're no longer duplicating efforts, so that all the partners who are there to try to improve health in the community are now working together. We help them try to access new lines of funding. We help them try to improve the level of service and access for many of these individuals who don't have health insurance, although some of them are beginning to get it. So we're out there, and our end goal is just to improve health outcomes. But because the resources are so limited, the new way of doing things has to be together. And so we act as a facilitator, we act as a convener, and we act as an evaluator. We work in the area of creative placemaking, which is particularly useful for this particular conference. Creative placemaking can be very broad. We actually have a few fine arts extension agents who work in Kentucky that are county-based, they're county-funded, and their goal is to try to bring arts for all audiences, and to also spur creative thinking, to try to then bridge new economic opportunities. We have a state-level person who is charged with creating an extension program that all agents across the state, regardless of their programmatic emphasis, can implement. Many of our schools have seen drastic cuts in the arts, and we know that there's a certain link between access to arts and sort of mental capacity. And so we think this is still really important. So we're trying to identify these mechanisms that are cost-efficient, heavily needed out for our rural communities. We do a lot of leadership development for all audiences. So we do for adults. We'll work with elected officials to try to enhance their leadership development, because many do not have that particular training. And we'll work with youth. So we'll have youth come over a year-long period. They actually present to their governor. They will go and see a drug court where they see their friends' parents being carted away in handcuffs. They'll think about community design in their neighborhood. How can they improve safe routes to school? What can they do to create a space where children of all ages feel safe and where they can socialize together? It's our newest program, and for me, it's the one that's most important because it creates a sense of opportunity for these kids who really want to leave. That is their number one goal. We've got to get out of this rural community. There's nothing for us here. There's nothing to do. And so through this program, we're trying to identify potential career opportunities through entrepreneurship, through health programs, through whatever, so that one day they come back and they can contribute to their community. And then finally, we do work around local foods. So this specifically targets agriculture sector, and it's there to try to improve the health of a pretty unhealthy state. So here are our economic development efforts. And so I said that the university has programs that are already dedicated to really trying to partner with industry, create new innovations, drive the creation of new jobs, recruit new industry to the area. And so that's not where our emphasis is. We do work in some areas to provide data and analysis to show the likelihood of a particular type of firm moving to an area based on their current conditions. But for the most part, we're going out to rural areas and we're saying, you're not getting the next automobile manufacturer. You're not on a highway, you don't have the workforce right now. So let's focus on the things you do have. Let's take our businesses that are currently the mainstay of our local economy and let's enhance them. Let's figure out opportunities for growth or minimize the opportunities for those doors to close. So we provide sort of this slew of economic development programs. We'll work on strategic planning. So we'll do strategic plans for the nation's first nation's first promise zone, which is located in southeast Kentucky, that was designated by President Obama. And so we work with them to think about what are the key priorities for this region to try to take them from where they are right now to a measurable, improvable outcome. We'll do network development and facilitation. I think we all can say we're at a stage right now, we cannot do this alone. We all want the same things, and if we're all doing them in isolation, then we get nowhere. And so we really serve as a pivotal role of bringing these individuals, these entities, these organizations together and have a very serious conversation, very candid about what are you trying to get out of this? We all are not doing it to be altruistic. We want that, but we all need something to take home. And so we really have these very honest conversations about that. And in the end, our goal is to create a very official memorandum of understanding or some kind of consortium agreement. We do business retention and expansion programs, and so this will be in primarily rural areas, and we will use students as volunteers in many instances. They go out, they talk to all the businesses within the community. They ask them a certain set of questions about what are the things that they need, what are the current conditions that they see are not doing well, basically to identify a strategic plan to improve and enhance the existing local business economy. We work on industry cluster analysis. This is the big term in the last decade, trying to identify sort of where your areas of growth are. And so what are you really good at? What's your comparative advantage? So in Eastern Kentucky, it's often around mining, but that's going away. So what's the next thing? Well, we've got wood products. Well, what do you do with wood products? And so we tried to really think about this cluster-based economy. We do economic gardening, and we work with our Kentucky Small Business Development Center. I think almost all the states have those. And so we work one-on-one with businesses who are in a potentially high growth phase and try to provide them very intensive analysis based on marketing, on search engine optimization, on some GIS work, so they can say, okay, we're ready to take the next step, and they have a much clearer definition of what that should look like. And then we are just a big center for data. We provide county-level data for all counties within Kentucky. We do it by each county, we do it by a region, we do it for the state, and you'll see an example of that in a page after this. So each year we provide a report that we give to a lot of our stakeholders within the state. This was our last report for the fiscal year 2015. We worked in all those blue counties. Many of those are going to be rural. We have worked in every single urban county, but again, the majority of our focus is going to be in rural Kentucky. Here's an example of one of the data profiles that we give. This is how, we were a little bit surprised, but this is how we've gained a lot of love from our communities, is we provide these for free. We provide the data, we provide an interpretation, and for 7 different topics. So we do one on education. This one was just released. So that all the information is in one location. It's updated every 12 months so that it's pretty current. And it gives, depending on what each community is searching for, it gives a really good sort of current state of the nation. So they can tell a compelling story for whatever purposes they have. We do it for economics, we do it for healthcare, we do it for small business, workforce, retail, and ag and food. And so we really are constantly trying to figure out what communities need when they're either trying to tell a story or they're trying to convince new investments. Seems to be a very important tool for them. So this is something our dean likes us. We have a new dean that started a couple of years ago. She was our associate dean for research before, and so we were a little bit nervous when we went through new leadership, but I think we've sort of proven our point that we're important to the state. We're a pretty large entity now. We have 10 full-time staff. We have 4 graduate students and 2 undergraduate students. We work with about 8 to 10 faculty that span all of the college, and also we're a pretty good organizer with College of Public Health, College of Pharmacy, College of Business and Economics. And so we're really trying to bring a lot of partners together to try to generate new ideas and innovative programming. So for the last few years, for every dollar the college invested, SEDC raised an additional $2. So of those 16 people, the college supports 3 of them. So our goal now as we move forward, since we're past our 5 years of growth, is to coordinate these new partnerships across campus and the state. And this is something that I spend now all of my time doing. It's really fun to hear about what others are doing and how we can play a role. Wow, that was perfect. It was at 1 second. So I'm pretty impressed with myself, even though no one else is. All right, thank you. Questions? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, Alison, thank you very much. So, with broadband and wireless, new communication mechanisms and social networks and so on spreading to more rural communities, how has that affected the way you do your job, the way you can reach people? You have 10 full-time staff, but you have a pretty big territory to cover.
Yes, yes. My staff are currently working today. No, actually, one of them is. So one of the neat things that's just happened in Kentucky, well, that will soon be happening, is they've broken ground on a gigantic broadband pipeline. And this was part of a new initiative called SOAR, which is shaping our Appalachian shaping our Appalachian region in Kentucky. And so it's gigantic. And so it's dark fiber. And these are for communities that never had access to broadband before. And so I think as time goes on, we'll see new opportunities to work with communities at a distance. But for the most part, we get in the car and we do a process. And so that's been very challenging to try to convince others about why we have so much travel expenses. We are not delivering education the majority of the time. We are delivering technical assistance to create new synergies, new partnerships, and so we're very process-oriented, and it's really, really hard to do that distance-based. We actually were told the other day that we lost one of our days of training with our extension agents because for some other reason, so we would have to do webinars. And we actually got really, really nervous about that because there's something about being in the room, seeing what's going on, seeing relationships building, seeing who's not talking, and trying to act as that facilitator and saying, what about you? What do you have to say? What are you most nervous about? And so we don't use distance-based as much as we'd like. We do some webinars. We do sort of 3-minute podcasts to try to whet people's appetites. But for the most part, we come to work on Monday, disperse, until come back Friday afternoon. But hopefully, somehow, we'll come up with a solution to improve that.
Allison.
What?
Sorry.
Okay.
Chad Wooten, Texas A&M. What does a fine arts county agent look like? And is that 4-H share the fun and theater, that a big piece of what they do, or is it something
No, so our first 4-H agent, and I'm not sure the program would still be in existence if it wasn't for this woman. She is just absolute spitfire. So she's in Pike County, the furthest east county in Kentucky, and her background is theater. And so she created this program in eastern Kentucky that we really try not to have them focus on a specific media because we really want them to incorporate the interests of everyone who's there. But she created, got funding for a new theater. She created a new artist space. She worked with youth. She works with 89-year-old women to win these state Emmys for doing plays. So it's a combination of community, and it's a combination of business development, and then finally it's the arts piece. And so what we're trying to convince our agents as we move forward, and we try to make this a statewide program, is that you don't have to be an artist to incorporate this program. What you're doing is trying to infuse creative thinking and try to get that back out of your participants. right now the county decides to fund these, and so we're really trying to get counties to invest because it creates a quality of life, a sense of place that's attractive for families, and it's attractive for businesses to move into that area. And if you ever did an extension agent programming with our 3 agents, it is highly entertaining because they all are theater people, and they are have no attention span whatsoever. So it's a lot of fun, but it took a certain person to start it, and now because of the success of it, we're able to maintain that. Okay, thank you very much.